Hello guys, today we are going to discuss the concept of good governance, and that's your SLO number 3.2.1. Guys, governance means executing or implementing laws. That's how laws are implemented and how rules are executed in an area or in any organization. That's called governance. Well, speaking in political terminology, we mean by governance we mean how a country or how a state or a province is ruled, right? So governance means ruling or monitoring or executing laws in a country, and good governance means executing laws or implementing laws in a proper way. So, guys, good governance, it's a broader term. It's really difficult to define good governance. It's not because that how we don't know how to define good governance. It's because there are number of definitions that are suited for good governance. Today we will take a brief concept of good governance. Good governance is a way of measuring how public institutions conduct public affairs and manage public resources in a preferred way. So, I'm sorry guys. So, good governance means how public institutions are conducting public affairs. For example, our legislature, our executive, judiciary, these are our basic public institutions. How these institutions are working. If they are working in a proper way and if they are managing public resources in a preferred way, then we call it a good governance. And if these institutions are not working properly, and if these institutions are not managing public resources in a good way, then there is not good governance. So good governance is a way of measuring how public institutions conduct public affairs. Or you can define good governance in another way as well. Good governance is an approach to government that is committed to creating a system founding justice and peace that protects individuals' human rights and civil liberties. So good governance is an approach to government. Government is a style, a technique to govern something. And what type of style? That's if the government is committed in creating a system founded justice, if government is providing justice to all segments, if government is protecting peace and protecting individual rights, human rights, civil liberties, then we called it a good governance. If government is not doing so, then it cannot be called a good governance. United Nations has used 8 different parameters to measure good governance in any area. They use, for example, they say participation. If all segments, if all segments of the population in any country are participating in government affairs, then we call it a good governance. That's the government must not represent a segment of the population in a country. Rather, it should represent all segments of the country. If it is doing so, then it's good governance. If it is not doing, or if it's not parts, if not all segments are participate in government affairs, then there is no good governance. Especially the vulnerable segments, they must be represented in governance. Next is the government must be consensus oriented. That is, it must represent the wishes of all, not the wishes of just a segment, right? If government is not representing the wishes of all public, then we cannot call it good governance. For example, in India, the BJP is representing the wishes of just a small segment of the entire India. So we cannot call it a good governance. Responsiveness is also a parameter to measure good governance. That is, government must be responsive. Government must show its responsiveness in all matters. Government must not sleep and just look while if let's see if somebody is doing injustice in country and if somebody is breaking laws, the government must be responsive in that case. If government is not responsive in that case, then we cannot call it a good governance. And rule of law, that is the there should be rule of law. Laws must not be only in written form, they must be implemented as well. If laws are not implemented, then we cannot call it good governance. For example, in Pakistan, we are having a wonderful constitution. We are having very good laws, but they are rarely implemented. So we can say that we are still unable to make or develop good governance in our country because we are failed to implement all laws. Equity and inclusiveness. That's all segments must be inclusive in all policies. It must not negate some parts of population and concentrate on remaining others. And there should be equity. How many of you know what does equity means? It's very much similar to equality, but just a little bit different. Equity means if somebody is weak, he must be more cared as compared to the stronger one. Let's suppose take the example of taxes. If the burden of taxes is put equally on rich and poor, then we say that there is not equity. So if there is no equity, then we call that there is no good governance. Accountability, that all institutions must be accountable to each other, and the ultimate institution must be accountable to public. For example, executive must be accountable to legislature, and legislature must be accountable to public. If executive is not accountable to legislature, and if legislature is not accountable to public, then we say that there is no good governance. Next parameter is transparency. All projects must be transparent. If the activities of government are not transparent and if they are not known to all, then we say that there is no good governance. And effectiveness and efficiency. Government must be effective and government must show its efficiency in all matters. If government is not effective and if government is not showing efficiency, then we say that there is no good governance. So United Nations use these 8 parameters to measure the good governance. They are effectiveness and efficiency, accountability, participation, rule of law, transparency, responsiveness, consensus oriented, equity and inclusiveness. So these are the parameters used to measure good governance. If these parameters are not fulfilled, then we say that there is no good governance. And if these parameters are fulfilled, we call it good governance. Now your question is, do you think there is good governance in Pakistan? You know what is good governance, and being Pakistani, you know what's happening around you. You have to just observe those and give an answer that do you think is there good governance in Pakistan or not? And you have to submit this assignment by day after tomorrow. Thank you for joining. Take care. Goodbye.